Hi, I'm Lelia Lewis, and welcome to another edition of New Day, New Beginnings. Now, today we're going to talk about something that affects all of us, and not just sometimes, a lot of times, and that's fear. And you say, well, so many things can make you fearful. And what is fear? We're going to discuss fear, what it is, and how we can overcome it. And I've got a lot of examples right here to share with you today. So first of all, let's discuss fear itself. What is fear? And fear is a feeling. It's a deep emotion. It's a response that we have to a person or an event or an action, a situation, things that happen. Anything can bring fear, a phobia. People are scared of all kinds of things. You know, bees, high levels, can't climb a ladder, don't like heights. People are fearful of a whole lot of things. And all different things create fear. And some of the feelings other than fear, because fear is a feeling, it's an emotion. And some other emotions could be anything like affection, it could be happiness, it could be sympathy, it could be anger. And all these are generated by things that are going on in our life. But usually those type of things are kind of short-lived because actually you're always responding to something or someone or an action. But it has to be something a little more specific. It could be words. People could be talking about you negatively. That could cause a reaction. It could be physical, bullying. It could be anything like that. But the thing of it is, we've got to learn how to control our feelings and our emotions. So now, today, we're going to talk about how faith versus our fears. So now that we know what fear is, what's faith? Okay, faith is a trust, a belief. It's a strong conviction that we have. It's a loyalty, but the loyalty can only go to God. It's got to go to God. So now, what we're going to do is, I'm going to try to read these verses to you. These are actually verses in the Bible, of people who overcame their fears back then and their emotions with faith. Okay, so somebody might say, well, faith in what? Well, faith in God. He's our only Heavenly Father. Who else can you have faith in? You sure can't have faith in people. People are deceptive. Yeah, they got your back until something goes wrong, and then they're gone and you're stuck on your own. So where do we get our faith from? And I talk about it all the time. From reading the Word. Reading it, meditating on it, thinking about how it applies to you. What is God trying to say to you? You know, you've got to learn how to understand so we can think the way God thinks. So today I'm going to start in the book of Matthew because I found quite a bit of different verses. And they're all different scenarios, but they were all solved with faith. So let's go to Matthew, and we're going to go to chapter 8, and I'm going to start in verse 5. Verse 5 is under the heading of the centurion's servant is healed. So let's go to chapter 5, and it says, and when Jesus entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion, beseeching him, asking him, and saying, Lord, my servant is at home, sick of the palsy and grievously tormented. He's in great pain. And Jesus said, oh, I'll come and heal him. But look at verse 8. The centurion said to the Lord, I am not worthy that thou should come under my roof, but all you have to do is speak the word, and my servant shall be healed. He said, because I'm a man of authority. I have men under me. I say, do this, do that, go here, come there, and they do as I say. And when Jesus heard this, he marveled at this. And he said unto the people that were following him, he said, never have I seen such great faith. Why? Because the centurion didn't even need Jesus to come to his house because he had such great faith in what he could do. He said, oh Lord, all you have to do is speak the word, and I know my servant will be healed. I know my servant will be healed. That's amazing. A little bit of faith, that's all it took. He said, you don't even have to lay hands on him. You don't have to do anything. Just speak the word. That's true faith. Now let's go to chapter 9. And I'm going to go over to verse 18. And this is under the heading of a ruler's daughter raised. Now, this is when Jesus was speaking, and it says, there came unto him a certain ruler, and he worshipped him, saying, my daughter is even now dead. But come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. And Jesus arose and followed him, and so did his disciples. But look at this. In the meantime, at the same time, while they were going to the ruler's house to see about his daughter, look at verse 20. Behold, a woman who was diseased with a blood disorder that she'd had for 12 years, she came up behind Jesus, and she touched the hem of his garment. And she said within herself, she said, if I may touch his garment, I shall be made whole. All she had to do was touch the hem of his garment. She didn't need him to lay hands on her. She didn't even need him to say anything to her. But Jesus turned about And when he saw her, he said, "Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole." And the woman was made whole that very hour. Again, all about faith, all about trust, all about belief. All she needed was to touch the hem of his garment. And she was made whole because she believed. Now let's go to verse 23. We're going to pick up because he's still going to the ruler's house. So now in verse 23, they came into the ruler's house. But when they got in there, Jesus saw the minstrels and the people making noise. Making noise meaning they were grieving and crying because the girl had died. But Jesus said unto them, "Give place," that means leave. "For this maid is not dead, she sleeps." But what they do, they laughed at him and they scorned him and they were like, "Oh, right, we've been here all this time. Now you're going to tell us she's asleep." So they scorned him. But when the people were put forth, that means when they were gone, he went in, took her by the hand, and the maid arose. And the maid arose. Why? Because her father, the ruler, he had great faith in Jesus. He didn't care what the people said. He didn't care what they thought. He didn't care. He ushered them out so Jesus could come in. He had trust and belief that was unshakable. And that's the kind of trust, that's the kind of faith that we have to develop within ourselves in order to overcome our own obstacles on a daily basis. Now, let's go down a couple more verses, down to verse 27. And so it says, "And when Jesus departed there, two blind men followed him, and they were crying out, and they said, 'O thou son of David, have mercy on us.' And when he had come into their house, the blind men came to him. But Jesus said to them, 'Do you believe that I'm able to do this?' And they said, 'Yes, Lord.' And Jesus touched their eyes. And he said, 'According to your faith, be it unto you.' And their eyes were opened. And their eyes were opened. There you go. That's 3 or 4 different scenarios right there. How faith overcame fear. They all were in bad situations, but they knew that Jesus could do everything he said he would do. And now we're going to go to Matthew chapter 17. And we're going to go to verse 14. Because this is under the heading of a demonic boy healed. Let's go to verse 14. "And when they had come to the multitude, there came to him," to Jesus, "a certain man, kneeling down to him and saying, 'Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is lunatic and sore vexed.'" That means he's overcome. "For often he falleth into the fire, and often fall into the water. And I brought him to the disciples, but they couldn't heal him." And when the man told Jesus that, all Jesus could reply and say was, "Oh, you faithless and perverse generation." And Jesus was like saying, "You have no faith. What type of generation are you? You have no faith and you're perverse. And perverse simply means corrupt. You're a corrupt generation. You're a faithless generation. But verse 18 said, but Jesus rebuked the devil, and the devil departed out of him, and the boy was cured from that very hour. Why? Because the man knew that Jesus could do anything. So then, but later on, look what happened. In verse 19, the disciples, later on after they had left, they came to Jesus and they asked Jesus, why couldn't we cast out the devil? And Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief. Unbelief, his own disciples, how could they not believe when they walk with him all the time, every day, and see him create miracles, to do things, to heal people, make the blind to see, the lame to walk, and they still, he said, because of your unbelief. He told them, he said, if you had had as much faith as a grain of mustard seed. You know how small a mustard seed is? It's an itsy bitsy little seed. That's all the faith they had to have. He said, if you had had as much faith as a grain of mustard seed, then nothing would have been impossible for you. They didn't have enough faith to believe that they could do the same thing that Jesus had bestowed on them to do. And that's the same thing he's saying in Matthew 21. It says, all things whatsoever you shall ask in prayer and believe, you shall receive. That's it. Belief and trust. Without those, you're not going to get your prayers answered. You can't just pray or say the words and think that everything's going to be automatically done. It doesn't work that way. You have to be sincere with your prayer, and it has to come from your heart. God knows when we're telling the truth. He knows before we know. You can't fake it with God. It doesn't work like that. So let's now go to let's go to Mark. Let's go to Mark chapter 4. Now, Mark chapter 4, we're going to start in verse 37. And that's when they were in their ship crossing to the other side. And verse 37 says, and there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship, so that now it was full. And where was Jesus? He was over there asleep on a pillow. And where were his disciples? They were panicking. They were full of fear. Feared they were going to drown. Feared the boat was going to overturn. So what do? They woke him up. And they're telling him, Master, Master, don't you care that we might perish? They're all thinking they're going to drown. And he's asleep. So he arose, 39. He arose and he rebuked the wind. And he said unto the sea, peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And what did he say to them? He said, verse 40, why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? And that's his own disciples. How come you don't have any faith? What is it with you guys? You see me every day. You're with me every day. You know what I'm capable of. I already told you I will not leave you or forsake you. If I'm over here asleep, why aren't you asleep? Why are you panicking and thinking we're going to say, I'm not going to let anything happen to you? There you go. They had no faith. It's all about faith, trust, and belief. And through fear, that just makes us have wrong choices. We make wrong choices. We make wrong decisions. We make snap decisions, which we shouldn't do. Impulsive judgments, all that kind of stuff. And it could do things that are harmful to others or even to yourself. Even to yourself. And the harm that we could do, it could last a lifetime. And that's why it's so important, to listen to what people are saying to you. Don't just take it for what they say it is. You've got to think about it yourself. You've got to keep a check on your own self, on your own feelings, on your own emotions. Don't let them run away with what others are telling you. And that's an easy way to get caught up in situations or other people's opinions even. Just because they say it doesn't make it so. And we see that all the time. We see it all the time on TV. We see protesters. We see activists, various groups, sometimes even individuals. And they figure what? Well, if they talk long enough, loud enough, and hard enough, somebody's going to listen. And you know what? They do. But you can't be one of those somebodies. You've got to think for yourself. And you've got to ask yourself, well, first of all, what are they talking about? And second of all, what's the purpose? What is the purpose of what they're talking about? What will the outcome be? And what will the consequences be? Because everything we do, all the choices we make have consequences. Some are good and some are not so good. Some are short-lived and some last a lifetime. And these are the things we have to think about in our everyday lives to prevent us from making wrong decisions. That's important. We've got to prevent ourselves from making wrong decisions. I mean, we can get caught up in an instant with our family, our friends, sometimes our acquaintances, or even strangers. You can get caught up in stuff real fast before you even know what hit you. And by family, I mean, they might say, well, we family. You know how that goes. We're family. You're supposed to stick by me. I'm doing this, I'm saying that. But just because they're family, that in itself makes you nervous. Because first you're thinking, well, are they going to reject me now? Are they going to not talk to me now? Are they going to badmouth me now? Now you're getting nervous already. They're going to badmouth you to others, tell other family members, oh, yeah, well, she didn't do this and she didn't do that. I asked her to do that and she wouldn't even do. So that creates fear. Same thing with friends. Friends can really back you, put your back against the wall, so to speak. Oh, man, you're supposed to have my back. I thought you were my buddy. I thought you were my friend. I thought we were besties. You know how it goes. They almost intimidate you into trying to get you to do what they want you to do. And acquaintances. It might be somebody you just, happen to meet, maybe at a dinner or a party or wherever, and you just have chit-chat and talk about back in the day and what you used to do and how it used to be. Well, you might say something, oh, yeah, the guy might say, or the girl, whatever. They might say, yeah, well, I did take something when I was in that store. That was a long time ago, though. And about 5 months later, they come back to you and they say, well, remember you told me about how you took something from that store? Well, we could go around to that store around the corner because after 9 o'clock, nobody's in there. We could just hit that register and get right on out of there. You with me? Well, you might want to say, oh, no, I can't do that. And the minute you say no, the first thing they're going to say is, well, you remember you told me how you went in that store and did this and took that? Now, I wonder what your family would think if they knew the real you, or I told this one or that one about what you really did, so they could see what you really like. Come on, man, you going to back me or what? Intimidation. That's all that is. But then there's strangers. That's a different type of fear because that's something that's out of our control. And that's why we see so much carjacking, robbery, theft, those type of things. Because that's out of our control. And that's understandable. Now, how about sometimes you get a chance to just flat right out say no, and that's the end of it. Or you might get a chance to say, let me think about it. I don't know. Let me think about that. Now, when you get that opportunity, that's when it's time for you to pray and ask for direction. Because now you've got time to think. And now's the time for you to request your wisdom and your guidance, all the stuff you need to circumvent what's getting ready to happen. And can't nobody give you what you need but our Heavenly Father. Let me give you an example. A fellow asked me to write him a letter, a reference letter, saying what a good worker he was and all that kind of thing. And reluctantly, I said, okay. I mean, I wasn't feeling it, but I said, okay. So he said, I'll call you in a couple days and, come get it. So, I'm doing what I'm telling you to do. For those 2 days, I prayed. I said, oh, Lord, show me what to do, because I have no clue. I wrote what I wrote, but, I just was leery about it. So anyway, the 2 days went by, and I was like, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? And guess what? I never even heard from him again. Didn't know why. I don't know why. I just know that God took care of it because me and God knew that I could not handle it. So in that instance, my job was to do absolutely nothing. Just leave it up to God. Put it in His hands. And that's why I'm always talking about Proverbs 3 and 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. Because half the stuff we get into, we don't understand. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. Trust me. Trust me. It works for you every time. I want you to, I keep saying, commit that to memory. Proverbs 3, verse 5. Because I think about it all the time, and I repeated it to myself at that time. Because that always gives me confidence and slows me down, and I can kind of relax. It calms you. It really does, to know that you have somebody to trust. Now, what did we say? Faith was what? Trust, belief, and loyalty. But loyalty only to God. Because as long as we have loyalty to Him, we know He never fails.